The universe had never tasted a predator quite like humanity. When the Shadow Collective descended upon Earth, they came as all apex hunters do, with silent claws and the arrogance of perfected evolution. Their invisibility cloaks bent light like water, their scythe arms carved through steel like warm butter, and their metabolisms left the air stinking of charred bread, a calling card for lesser species to tremble at. They had consumed 100 worlds before ours, each conquest a clinical dissection of fear. But Earth, with its bleeding livestock and tangled crops, its farmers who prayed to dirt and children who laughed at storms, defied their arithmetic. The collective scouts noted our weaknesses: fragile biology, primitive weaponry, a comical obsession with bovine quadrupeds. They did not register the barns stocked with homemade explosives, the silos converted into armories, the way a man who's buried his kin in unmarked graves learns to see patterns in chaos. Most crucially, they failed to taste the irony in our oldest survival tactic, the art of appearing harmless. For millennia, we hid wolves in sheep's clothing. The collective never considered we might hide wolves and cows. This is not a story of heroes. Heroes die clean. This is a chronicle of butchers and liars, of farmers who traded plowshares for railguns and found scripture in fertilizer manuals. It's about the stink of whiskey-soaked bandages, the hum of a hologram projector masking artillery fire, and the terrible calculus of loving a planet enough to scorch it yourself. The galaxy remembers the Shadow Collective as invincible hunters. They remember us as the reason you should never trust a pasture. Chapter 1. The smell of burnt toast lingered in the barn long after the fires had died. Jake Sullivan crouched in the hayloft, breath fogging in the November chill, and wondered if that stench would ever leave his lungs. It clung to the splintered wood, the rusted tractor seat, the bones of the dog he'd buried too shallow behind the feed silo. 3 years since the Shadow Collective's first harvest, and still the reek of their passing turned breakfast comfort into a funeral dirge. He adjusted the hologram collar around his throat, its chafing edges raw against farmboy calluses. The projector hummed, a sound like cattle lowing through water, and for a heartbeat, the barn's ruins shimmered, golden afternoon light. Father whistling through broken teeth as he jury-rigged the device to scare off coyotes. Mother's laughter from the kitchen, radio crackling Old MacDonald through tinny speakers. The memory dissolved into present rot. Jake's finger twitched against his railgun's cooling vent. Ghosts made poor company, but they didn't flinch when you put a round between their eyes. Movement northeast, crackled Sergeant Velez's voice in his earpiece. No ma'am, no sir in Task Force Blackwater, just names and kill counts. Sullivan, you still alive up there? Jake scanned the killing field through his scope. Nebraska's corpse stretched beyond the barn, blackened wheat stalks like arthritic fingers clawing at a migraine sky. The collective's last visit had left the land cauterized, all color leached to gunmetal and ash, perfect hunting ground. He thumbed his scope to thermal, watching crimson blurs swirl at the tree line. Predators dancing just beyond sight. Got 6, maybe 7 heat signatures, he murmured. The hologram collar itched. They're hurting, a dry chuckle over comms. Then let's give him a flock to cull. Jake's boot nudged the detonator at his feet. Across the field 50 holographic cows flickered into being, perfect Holstein replicas down to swishing tails. Father's design, improved with military-grade stabilizers. The projector on his hip warmed, casting long shadows through the barn's skeleton. For a moment, the land breathed again. Then the first shimmer rippled through the air. They came like heat-stroke mirages. 7-foot silhouettes warping light around razor-wire limbs, the stench of scorched bread preceding them. Jake's scope tracked their approach. Closer. Closer. The lead hunter paused, eyeless head cocked, its mandibles flexed, tasting deception on the wind. Wait, Jake willed it. Just another step. The alien lunged. Twin scythe arms sheared through a hologram cow's neck. The image sputtered, then erupted in white phosphor. Jake stomped the detonator. Railgun turrets hidden in hay bales roared to life, shredding twilight with hypersonic rounds. Now, Velez barked. Jake's first shot took the lead hunter through its scent gland cluster. The thing came apart like a rotten melon, spraying black ichor across its brethren. His second round punched through a shimmering thorax. The aliens scattered, their invisibility flickering under sustained fire. One scrambled toward the barn, burnt stench overwhelming. Jake saw his mother's apron catching fire. Saw the shotgun slipping from Dad's charcoal fingers. Saw the thing that had taken his sister's face along with her life. He put 3 rounds through its central ganglion. It died whispering in her voice. When the silence returned, it brought tinnitus and the stink of spent uranium. Jake reloaded mechanically. 6 corpses melted into acid puddles. The 7th hunter dragged itself toward the tree line, legs vaporized. Velez's boot appeared in his scope view, her scarred Latina features tightening as she put a pistol round through its skull. "You missed cleanup duty, farm boy," she said over comms. Jake didn't answer. His gaze lingered on the dying holograms. Cattle lowing soundlessly as their pixels faded. Some part of him always expected real blood in the dirt. The debrief came through whiskey fumes and engine grease. They'd commandeered what remained of the O'Neill Dairy Farm's cellar, its stone walls papered with satellite maps and child's crayon drawings, salvaged from the rubble. Private Nguyen adjusted frequencies on their jammer, filling the air with static hymns. Corporal Hayes peeled off her blood-caked armor, revealing fractal scars from their last tango with collective plasma blades. "Body counts 8, Velez said, slapping a fresh magazine into her sidearm. The weapon's serial numbers had been filed off, like all of them. Commands wetting themselves over the sensor footage. "Seems our little pasture party's gone viral," Hayes snorted. "Let me guess. More Hell's Cattleman merch. Worse." Velez tossed a tablet to Jake. Screen glow lit his stubble as TikTok videos played. Soldiers in cow costumes, dancing to Old MacDonald remixes, conspiracy theorists arguing bovine supremacy. His own face stared back from a meme mo Thurship to you superimposed over the barn's ruins. Jake set the tablet down carefully. The hologram projector dug into his hip. "They'll adapt. They're already adapting." Velez unfolded a thermal satellite image. Crimson blooms swarmed near Omaha's ruins. Next harvest waves twice as big, and they're bringing new toys. Nguyen looked up from his jammer. "What's the play?" Velez's smile showed too many teeth. "We give them a rodeo they'll never forget." Later, while others slept, Jake climbed to the barn's remains. The hologram projector felt heavier tonight. He activated it once. Briefly. A single cow materializing, where his sister's swing set had stood. Its pixels trembled in the wind. "Should have been me," he told the ghost in the wires. The admission changed nothing. It never did. Somewhere east, a stray dog howled. Jake loaded his railgun. Dawn would bring worse than dogs. Chapter 2. The frost came early that year. It glazed the skeletal remains of Omaha's industrial district in a brittle sheen, turning collapsed overpasses into glass serpents and frozen puddles into jagged mirrors. Jake crouched inside the carcass of a derelict biodiesel refinery, his breath crystallizing against the railgun's scope. The air tasted of rust and ammonia. No burnt toast here, not yet, but his lungs tightened anyway. Ghosts didn't need scent to haunt. They rode the cold. He adjusted the hologram collar beneath his thermal scarf. The projector's hum had changed since Nebraska. Deeper. Rougher. Like cattle lowing through a throat full of barbed wire. Command's upgrades after the viral ambush had turned his father's invention into something hungry. Jake didn't trust machines that purred. "Thermal sweep in 90. Sergeant Velez said over comms. Her voice sounded thinner these days, frayed at the edges. The scar across her jawbone, a collective sidearm's kiss, pulled her smile into a permanent snarl. "Nguyen's jammers are frying half the district. You see flickers, you yell." Jake didn't answer. His scope traced the refinery's corpse. Shattered distillation towers clawing at a migraine sky. Frozen chemical spills blooming like cobalt fungi. Perfect ground for butchers who hated light. He flexed his trigger finger, feeling the phantom weight of his sister's hand. 3 years less. They still can't paint over your blood. The first drone appeared as a distortion, a heat mirage rippling across ice. Jake's crosshairs trembled. Not from fear. From memory. The collective's old hunters moved like wolves. All coiled muscle and pack instinct. This thing floated. An obsidian disc the size of a tractor tire, its underbelly bristling with sensors that dripped frozen mucus. Adaptation. Evolution. Revenge. Contact northeast. Jake murmured. The drone's eyes swiveled toward him. He saw his father's barn burning in its lens. Heat seeker. They're scanning. Velez's curse crackled. Fall back to phase 2. And Sullivan? Try not to die before happy hour. The hologram projector seared Jake's hip as he activated it. Cattle shimmered into being. Not Holsteins now, but skeletal projections that flickered like bad reception. Command's idea of adaptive camouflage. The drone shrieked. A sound like nails dragged through sheet metal. Jake's fillings hummed. He fired. The railgun's recoil numbed his shoulder. The drone exploded in a shower of molten silica. Its death scream summoned others. A swarm of black discs boiling from refinery pipes. Jake's thermal scope flared crimson. He counted 12. 20. 30. They're hurting us. Nguyen yelled. Static chewing his words. Jammers overloading. Jake's earpiece died mid-sentence. The drones descended in a spiral. Sensors vomiting microwave heat. Ice melted. Concrete glowed. The hologram cattle wavered. Their pixels dissolving. Jake tasted copper. His own bitten tongue. This is how it ends. Not in fire, but in math. They learned. He ran. Drones strafed the ground with laser fire, turning frost to steam. Jake's boots slipped on wet concrete. He fell hard, cracked ribs singing, and rolled behind a collapsed reactor core. The hologram projector spat sparks. A drone's shadow loomed. The scream wasn't his. Human. Familiar. Jake lunged around the core. Saw Nguyen on his knees, hands fused to his jammer rigged by molten plastic. Saw the drone hovering inches from his face. Sensor tendrils probing his screaming mouth. Saw Velez charge from cover. Armor smoking. Sidearm blazing. Her first shot glanced off the drone's carapace. The second vanished in a microwave haze. The drone pivoted. Velez met its gaze. Well? Come taste. The laser cut her off. Cut through. Her torso fell one way. Legs the other. Blood freezing before it hit the ground. Jake's next breath tore his throat raw. Nguyen stopped screaming. The drone turned. Jake's railgun answered. He didn't remember retreating. Didn't remember killing. Later, there were only fragments. A drone exploding inside a fuel tank, showering the district in frozen diesel rain. Haze dragging him into a sewer pipe. Her fractal scars glowing with alien coolant. The smell of burnt toast creeping back in. Stronger now. As the surviving collective hunters arrived to mop up. They hid for 3 days in a collapsed parking garage. Hayes's leg festered where a drone's shrapnel had bitten. Nguyen's hands were claws. Jake's hologram projector lay in pieces, its innards spilling copper intestines. He tried fixing it by the light of a glowstick. Fingers numb. Tried not to see Velez's bisected corpse every time he blinked. They're evolving. Hayes whispered on the third night. Her fever made a child of her voice. We can't beat math, farm boy. Jake said nothing. He watched ice crystals form on the garage ceiling. Somewhere above, the collective's hunters paced. Their footsteps hissed, acid-eating concrete. He wondered if they dreamed of cattle. The defector came on the fourth night. Jake felt it first. A pressure change. Like storms brewing over his father's feet. Then the smell burnt toast undercut with something sharper. Ethanol. Rotgut moonshine. It materialized from shadow. Its invisibility cloak glitching. 7 feet tall, carapace scarred with glyphs that hurt to look at. Not a hunter. Something older. Its mandibles clicked, producing mangled English. Jake Sullivan. We. Parley. Hayes's railgun whined. Jake pushed the barrel down. Keep quiet. The alien Crix. His mind supplied, though he couldn't say how. Gestured with a bladed limb. A hologram sputtered from its wrist. Earth's logo over a star map. Veclar. Lies. Harvest waste. I show weakness. Jake's pulse roared. The thing smelled like his father's still exploding. Like Lys's hair burning. Why? Crix's eyeless face tilted. Your cows. Chaos theory combat. Veclar fears. I admire. It extended a claw. Fluid dripped. Black. Shimmering. Asylum. For teaching. Hayes spat. Bug wants to play cowboy. Jake stared at the offered claw. Saw his reflection in its chitin. A gaunt stranger with dead eyes. Chaos as weapon. Madness as shield. He gripped Crix's limb. The carapace burned cold. Show me. Later. While Hayes slept fitfully, Crix led him to a ruined distillery. The alien moved like guilt, pausing at every shadow. Its scent clung to the rusted fermentation vats. Awakening memories Jake had buried. Father smuggling shine in milk cans. Mother scolding him with laughter in her throat. Lys daring him to sip from the still. Weakness. Here Crix rasped, pointing at a corroded ethanol tank. Collective cloak fails. This. Jake touched the tank. Frostbite numbness spread up his arm. He saw it suddenly. The burnt toast stench wasn't the hunter's breath. It was their blood. Their fuel. They're burning themselves alive to hide. Crix pressed a claw to the tank. Your herd tactics. With fire water. Become storm. The moon broke through clouds, painting the refinery in bone light. Jake's shattered hologram projector felt suddenly lighter. He smiled. It hurt. Got any moonshine left in those vats, partner? The alien's mandibles quivered. If collective beings laughed, this might have been it. We rodeo. By dawn the plan took shape. A madness of ethanol slush and jury-rigged holograms. A cattle drive through hell. Hayes called it suicide. Nguyen just stared at his ruined hands and nodded. Jake didn't care. The frost inside him had thawed, replaced by something older. Something that smelled of Iowa soil and sisters' laughter. As they rigged the distillery, Crix watched. Learned. Its claws hesitated on the detonators. As if respect required clumsiness. Jake didn't trust it. Didn't need to. War made strange bedfellows. And the frost was coming again. He loaded his railgun. Let the drones come. Let them taste human math. Chapter 3. The ethanol depot rose from the plains. Like a fossilized leviathan. Its skeletal storage tanks crusted with ice and old rust. Jake crouched in the shadow of a shattered pipeline. The wind carrying the tang of fermented grain. Sharp, sour. Alive. It reminded him of the backroom stills his father had hidden beneath the barn. Of nights spent listening to corn kernels pop like distant gunfire, while Lys traced constellations on his palm. Now the smell curdled into something darker. A funeral pyre waiting for a spark. Crix's claw hovered over the hologram map projected from its wrist. Glyphs twisting like snakes in a barrel. Veclar's brood nests here. It rasped, pointing to the central tank. The aliens' burnt toast stench had grown fainter since they'd started smuggling shine in their canteens, replaced by the acrid sweat of betrayal. Cloak generators. Ethanol feeds them. Destroy these collective bleeds. Hayes shifted beside Jake, her fractured leg brace creaking. Frost clung to her lashes, turning her gaze into shattered glass. So we blow the liquor cabinet. What's the catch? Catch is they'll smell us coming. Jake muttered. He adjusted his scavenged hologram projector. Its casing still cracked from the refinery. The cattle projections flickered, ghostly, warped, a dying man's memory of a herd. Even with the moonshine dampeners, we're on a clock. Nguyen said nothing. He hadn't spoken since the drones took his hands. His bandaged stumps rested on the detonator bag, twitching like gut-shot rabbits. Jake wondered if the man still dreamed in sound, or if static had eaten his voice the way acid ate flesh. They moved at moonset. The depot's perimeter wall had collapsed into a landslide of frozen rebar and concrete teeth. Jake led the way, boots crunching through ice-glazed puddles that mirrored the sky's swollen belly. Every step conjured ghosts. His father's whiskey-roughened laugh, Vela's corpse steaming in the snow, Lys's scream curdling into the collective's predatory hum. He gripped his railgun tighter. Grief was a round you never fired. The first storage tank loomed, a corroded god pregnant with poison. Crix gestured to its base, where feeder pipes pulsed with viscous fluid. Generators. Here. 3 charges per. The shot came from nowhere. A hypersonic round tore through Nguyen's chest, vaporizing the detonator bag in a pink mist. Jake hit the ground as the depot erupted in shrieking shadows. Thermal scans hadn't lied. The collective had learned to love the cold. Veklar materialized atop the tank, her invisibility cloak shimmering like oil on water. Taller than Crix, her carapace etched with hieroglyphs that made Jake's eyes bleed. She spoke without moving her mandibles, voice a wasp's nest lodged in his skull. Chaos is a flame. Jake Sullivan. You burn brightest. Just before ash. Hayes dragged Jake behind a pump station, as railgun fire chewed the earth. They knew. The bastard led us into a She jerked her chin at Crix, now scuttling toward Veklar, with the subservient hunch of a whipped dog. Jake's projector sparked. The hologram cattle stuttered. A crippled herd. He saw the trap too late. Saw his father's face in the static. Should have known. Should have been me. Charges. Hayes gripped his arm, her nails drawing blood. We rigged the backups. Now. They ran through hell's pantry. Storage tanks became coffins. Alleyways birth canals for laser fire. Jake planted charges with trembling hands. Each magnetized click a funeral bell. Hayes covered his back, her railgun singing a dirge of shattered carapace and ionized air. They didn't speak. Words died here. Only the math of survival remained. Veklar found them at Tank 9B. Jake's boot slipped in a coolant slick as she descended. Scythe arms carving runes in the air. Her stench burnt toast and ethanol, threatened to unspool his guts. Your herd dwindles. She hummed, circling. Behind her Crix watched. Eyeless and unreadable. Chaos requires witnesses. Who will remember your madness? Hayes spat a tooth. Stick your poetry up your. The scythe arm took her at the knee. She fell cursing, railgun blazing wild. Jake lunged, but Veklar backhanded him into a pipeline. Metal screamed. Blood warmed his collar. Somewhere, a charge detonated early. Tank 4E erupted in a mushroom cloud of blue flame. The depot shuddered. Finish it. Hayes growled. She tossed him her detonator. Her good leg bent at angles. Iowa. Korn never dreamed. I'll hold the encore. Jake's throat closed. Vela's corpse grinned from memory. Not again. Not her. But Hayes was already crawling toward Veklar, her laugh raw as a fresh grave. Come on, princess. Let's dance. The last charge burned Jake's palm. He ran as Hayes's final scream shook the frost from pipes. The depot became a cathedral of fire. Ethanol infernos painting the collective's hunters in funeral lace. Crix appeared beside him, clawing him into a maintenance shaft as the world tore itself apart. Why? Jake rasped, the detonator's trigger biting his thumb. Crix's mandibles quivered. Veklar feared your fire. I wish to warm myself. The final charge detonated. The shaft collapsed. Jake's last thought before darkness was of Lys's swing set creaking in the wind, of hologram cattle grazing in fields where no shadows fell. Chapter 4. The stars over Iowa had changed. They hung low now, swollen and jaundiced. Their light filtered through the collective mothership's amniotic atmosphere. Jake floated in the belly of the beast, his pressure suit stinking of sweat and fermented grain, and wondered if the sky missed its old constellations. Below him, through a membrane of alien biofilm, Earth's scars glowed, burnt toast battlefields, ethanol-fed rivers, the jagged geometry of cities that no longer knew their names. He'd traded his railgun for a farmer's syringe, its reservoir sloshing with Iowa's last moonshine batch. Somewhere in the ship's bowels, Crix was praying, or whatever passed for prayer among defectors with nothing left to burn. The mothership breathed. Its walls pulsed like a cow's flank mid-chew, ribbed with bioluminescent ducts that oozed viscous coolant. Jake drifted past nurseries of larval hunters, their translucent carapaces flickering with stolen memories. Velez's laugh, Hayes's final curse, his sister's swing set creaking under a Nebraska wind. The collective hoarded pain like wine. He injected a syringe into the nearest duct, watching ethanol mix with alien bile. "This one's for you, Dad." Crix found him near the reactor core, its claws caked in the mothership's clotting blood. "Veklar ascends," it rasped, mandibles flecked with stress pheromones that smelled like overcooked rye. "She consumes the fallen, grows stronger." Jake nodded. The reactor hummed a lullaby his mother once sang, off-key and aching. He pressed a hologram projector to the biofilm, its fractured lens, birthing a pixelated calf. "How long?" "One cycle. Maybe less." Crix's eyeless face tilted, tracking the hologram's stuttering gait. "Your herd tactic. It is illogical here." "Yep." Jake floated toward a nerve cluster, trailing wires from his makeshift bomb vest. A fertilizer rig, retrofitted with uranium slugs. The vest chafed like a promise. "That's why it'll work." They navigated arteries thick with the scent of dying hunters. The mothership was rejecting itself, ethanol corruption turning its organs to slurry. Jake's syringe ran dry. He tossed it aside, the glass clinking against a memory of his father still exploding. Same stink. Same stubborn fire. Veklar awaited them in the birthing chamber. She'd grown, a 20-foot abomination of chitin and weeping sores, her carapace studded with the faces of fallen Blackwater soldiers. Hayes's smirk twisted beneath a layer of mucus. "Chaos bringer." Veklar boomed, her voice a hive of pissed-off hornets. "You fertilize our evolution." Jake ignited the holograms. 1,000 cattle shimmered into being, their lowing syncopated by the projector's damaged core. They flickered through breeds. Angus, Hereford, Longhorn, before settling into something primal. Aurochs, ancestors, ghosts of the first herds that refused to be prey. Veklar laughed, a sound like tractors grinding bones. "You stall with phantoms." "Nope." Jake activated the bomb vest's timer. "Just reminding you what you're hungry for." The cattle charged. Veklar's scythe arms lashed out, carving through holograms that burst into ethanol flames. Jake floated through the inferno, detonator in hand. Crix's claws snagged his ankle, dragging him toward an airlock. "The pact. You promised." "Teaching." Jake hesitated. The reactor's hum rose to a scream. He saw his father's barn again, the holograms flickering as coyotes fled. Saw Lys's grave, unmarked but never unremembered. Saw Earth's scars waiting to be sown with something kinder than war. He tossed the detonator into Veklar's maw. Class dismissed. Crix yanked him into the airlock. As the mothership came apart, they fell through vacuum.
the explosion painting Jupiter's eye in shades of cornfield gold. Jake's visor frosted over. He thought of Velas's half-smoked cigars, of Nguyen's static silent laugh, of Hayes's last middle finger aimed at the dark. The hologram projector, clutched to his chest, sparked once. A cow's gentle moo lost to the void. 3 years later, the frost came late to the new Iowa. Jake knelt in the turned earth, his hands black with soil that remembered ash, but chose now to birth soybeans. The hologram projector sat on the fence post, its lens polished smooth, projecting not cattle but scarecrows in Velas's likeness. Kids from the Stealth Farming Academy raced through the fields, their laughter mingling with the whir of cloaked irrigation drones. Veklar, smaller now, her carapace sanded down by Earth's winds, shambled up the dirt road. She carried a lemonade pitcher in blunted claws, liquid sloshing through improvised gloves. "Your redemption," she hissed, mandibles struggling around the word. "It is inefficient, like unburned fuel." Jake stood, knees popping. The academy's barn loomed behind them, its solar panels humming. Inside, defectors and farm kids welded hologram collars onto sheep. Efficiency's overrated. He took the picture, nodding at her overalls. Dungarees stitched with "Kiss Me, I'm Bovine." Nice threads. Veklar's chitin flushed cobalt. "Your female leader insisted. Ambassadorial dress code." She gestured at the horizon, where the mothership's debris still burned on re-entry. "They call this peace." "Nope." Jake sipped lemonade. "Too sweet." Lys's recipe. Just a better kind of fight. They watched the sun dip below silos topped with railgun turrets. Somewhere, a recruit activated a hologram. A Holstein with Hayes's smirk, grazing where the depot's tanks once bled. The projector's hum harmonized with cicadas. Jake smiled. Earth turned. The stars kept their distance.